Hello, Suzy. Wrong.
Hello, Warren. You know, in the queer community, there are far fewer of us who have children compared to our straight counterparts. Do you think that makes us slower to mature?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I never know what you're going to ask me, Suzy. Do you think it makes us...
I've always got great questions, don't I?
You always do. Do I think it makes us slower to mature? No, look, I don't know. I don't think so. I think we mature faster because of everything that we have to go through. And we have to wisen up rather quickly. We have to wake up to what everyone's doing. We have to look over our shoulders all the time. I think we're already quite mature by the time
I agree with you,
school.
actually.
Yeah,
I think we've got so many challenges from such young ages. We do have to learn some skills sooner. But I do feel like I see a lot of Peter Pan syndrome within the community, though. Do you know what I mean?
What's Peter Pan syndrome, for those who don't know?
Where they're okay. I found a definition. Peter Pan syndrome is a popular psychology term for adults who act emotionally immature and refuse to accept typical adult responsibilities. I don't think that's what I mean. I think what I mean, I'm not sure. I just feel like sometimes I see gay people and they kind of look like they never grew up a bit. Or maybe it's just a surface thing.
Maybe, Suzy, it's also that a lot of people have had their childhood stolen, or, by the agenda of others, or by what others expect of them. They can't be themselves. And maybe we're seeing, we don't know. This is, and I just want to stress this, Suzy and I are just two friends chatting. This is not, professional psychological analysis or anything like that. But, maybe that's what it is. Maybe we just need to be kind to each other and say, well, you know what, maybe when we see people acting a little bit younger and a bit excited, it's not because they're not mature. It's just because they're being themselves for the first time in their lives and they've never had that opportunity. I used to notice it with gay men that, particularly ones that would come out later in life, there'd be almost like a kid in a lolly shop going out and experiencing all these things. And I'd be like, I don't want to go.
So many tasty treats.
Yeah, so many tasty treats. And I remember sort of thinking, why is that? I've been through all that and being all judgmental and everything, but maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's just they're so excited because finally they're allowed to be themselves and they don't have to expend all that energy about having to hide themselves and worry about who knows. And, oh, my goodness, if anyone at work finds out, am I going to lose my job? What happens if my partner finds, it's exhausting. We know it's exhausting. And maybe that's what it is that we're confusing for people being a little bit immature. Maybe it's like, you know what, go and enjoy yourself. You deserve it after all this time.
Yeah, for trans people, it is two things. Like I said earlier, we do have to learn some skills that other kids don't have to learn. We learn those things really early. And then when we do finally start to transition, you almost have to experience a second puberty, And then I do observe that is a very common theme. But what made me think about the question was how I feel like people change so much when they have kids. And I wonder if it's something that we miss out on, or maybe it's just things that we learn in different ways. Who knows?
Maybe for many of us,
just speculations.
Maybe it is something that we do miss out on. And things are a lot different for a lot of people now. But for a lot of us, it was not an option. It was never an option.
That's right.
And and we will never know the answer to that question as such, because for me it was never an option. Tried once, but John Howard was in power. It was too difficult.
Tried once to do what?
Well, I tried. We tried to adopt.
Right.
And it was just a nightmare. And we gave up as a couple at the time. Just went, no, you know what? I can't. And I was bitter about it. I was really bitter and angry. And I thought, you know what? I'd be a fabulous dad. This kid would be, have so many resources. And then I'd see kids that didn't, and kids were being abandoned and all this. And I was furious for years, Suzy, really angry with the federal government, angry with the situation, and thinking, why can't I give a kid an opportunity? I had the resources.
Well, you're right to be angry because no one deserves to have less rights than anybody else.
Exactly. I'm okay with it now. But at the time, I was really angry about it. And I thought, I was observing kids that were in difficult situations, and I was thinking, I could have done better. and you will not let me. And that
Well, you would have
is
been a
injustice.
great parent, like the parents we saw in this week's movie.
Yes, exactly. Let's talk about this week's movie before I get on my soapbox. I love the way you calm me down. It's called Just Kids. Tell us, Suzy, what do you think?
More half the states in the USA have banned gender-affirming care for those under the age of 19. Not only does this prevent trans teens from medication, it also stops medical professionals from providing mental health care and disallows schools from helping with their social transitioning. In some places, these bans are gradually extending to trans adults. Today, we are looking at the documentary Just Kids, which is available on demand to rent or buy on digital platforms. It follows 3 teenagers and their families as they navigate these new draconian laws in the red states where they were born and where they now have no option but try to leave. We see these youngsters in a desperate position at a critical time of their lives when puberty blockers and hormone therapy would mean a great deal to their maturation into adulthood. It is noteworthy that in Just Kids, these 3 families are all passionately supportive of their trans children, with parents and siblings who are completely supportive and all trying their hardest to find solutions for these very arduous challenges originating from the political sphere. It is so ironic that in a country that talks incessantly about freedom and liberty, that Americans have become so cavalier about enforcing tyrannical laws on people's lives, taking drastic measures against behavior that has nothing to do with anybody else. I have been watching closely the conservative movement spread in the USA over this last decade and cannot help but associate their comfort as this imposition over private lives with a culture of religious fervor. The way they have allowed fundamentalist Christianity to be so pervasive and to let it keep growing in strength over the decades is closely related, I think, to how they are now allowing the political class to act in these unreasonable and deplorable ways. I cling on to this belief about American extremism, hoping that Australian culture is essentially different, that no religion has been able to be this influential on any of our lives and our values, that we are people who are accustomed to giving a lot of latitude to others, that we are comfortable with others making their own decisions as long as they don't impede upon their neighbors' lives. In Just Kids, we see so clearly that these teenagers going through transition have completely no impact whatsoever on how anybody else goes about their business. Yet the legal apparatus and the medical establishment, along with the education system and other social mechanisms, are so easily manipulated to target a tiny group who are doing nothing except to make life more tolerable for themselves. I think we can agree that these political tactics are gradually approaching our shores, and it is suffice to say that we need to increase our vigilance, even if I do trust that Australians are not quite as gullible. In any case, Just Kids is a powerful and emotional documentary, and I urge you to take 90 minutes to check it out. Warren, I found some of it really hard to watch, which is no surprise as this is so directly relevant and painful to me and to my community. How did you respond to it?
I thought it was very difficult to watch. I feel like it's something that everyone should watch. I was thinking of you a lot when I was watching it, and I was thinking about, what does it mean to call somewhere home? You can love your home and still reach a point where your home no longer protects you. It's meant to be the place that we feel safest. But what happens when the state or the country in which you live begins passing laws against your family? Can someone still be home when the government makes it clear that your child is not welcome? There's also grief involved in leaving a place you love, even when leaving is necessary. I felt for the kids in this story, Suzy. It really moved me, to be honest with you. The children. The title feels a bit like a plea, doesn't it, to remember that these aren't political symbols, these kids. They're children. They're trying to grow up. They're children before they're political issues. But these people are making kids political issues when there's so many bigger threats in the world.
It's so good to see. It's so good to see how pure and innocent these 3 kids are. They're not small around the age of 17. And what they're asking for and what they're trying to obtain are such basic, simple, innocent things. And it's so important to be able to see that, because the way that the discussion has gone over these last 10 years or so in America has made it such a dirty affair that there's so much of this discussion is structured around this whole kind of like, this really ancient thing about trans people trying to lie to you and trans people trying to be something that they're not, and trans people are trying to make you kind of, like fool you into thinking that they're something else. And clearly in this documentary, none of that is ever present, that they're simply trying to be themselves. And it's so important to be able to see that. And it's so important to see as well that what they actually want, what they are asking for is so basic, is so small, is so simple. Yet, they have to jump through such crazy hoops to be able to reach those.
The thing that I find quite fascinating about all of this, Suzy, is you hear things like they're indoctrinating our kids, all these threatening, scary terms that, would make anyone want to run away from anyone. But these are just kids. And you said it in your review. They're just wanting to be themselves, live their life and not affect anybody. They're just a few kids on their own. But these people make them out to be scary monsters that are going to go and destroy the world. I mean, that's what they're saying, basically. And therefore, this is our number one priority, our number one threat. We need to get on top of it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Even if someone doesn't understand the whole thing. I'm not trans. I don't know what it's like to be trans, but I'm not scared of it. My best friends are trans. I'm not scared of it. There's nothing frightening about it. I'm scared of other big issues in the world, the obvious elephants in the room that are going on right around the world now. It's not trans kids that are dropping the bombs. It's silly.
I think it's so important to understand how much of our politics is fear-based. I think it's always a little bit invisible how they kind of manipulate public opinion and how they try to essentially win votes to get in power. That they place so much on fear. Whether we talk about economic stability or, wars or all these things. So much of it is based in fear. And I think when it comes to the economy, when it comes to war, a lot of these people who want to attain positions of power, they don't have the solutions. They don't know how to make every Australian make more money. They don't know how to stop the war in the Middle East, but they know how to fabricate, turn kids into monsters. They know how to do that. And they see that it can be effective. And I think in a lot of places in Europe and America, it's proven to be effective in helping people gain power. And clearly it's starting to happen here. And, like I said, I don't believe that we are as gullible, but, who knows? More importantly, though, I think people just need to be more knowledgeable about what's actually happening and how these scapegoats are created. Scapegoats are always crucial in how people get into power, whether you're talking about immigrants or indigenous people or things like that. Is one scapegoat after another. Like I said, because they can't fix your low wage issue. So they shift the discussion to be about immigration, to be about trans people, to be about bathrooms, things like that.
Exactly.
It's important that we remember what's actually happening when we are engaged in these discussions.
So next time someone holds up a distraction and says, look over here at these threatening trans kids in the corner over here that are going to come and get you and your family and your kids, try and focus on the price of your groceries or the price of petrol or the war expanding in the Middle East, all those sorts of things, rather than get distracted by these nonsensical arguments that are just not true.
Yeah. To get people to vote based on these things that have no bearing on their lives at all is insane. I don't think, this sort of movement has been very successful. I mean, on one hand, Pauline Hanson has been in the public domain for 30 years, that she hasn't gone away. But on the other hand, she has never, been as powerful as probably she would want. So I do have some faith in that. Australians are a bit different, as well as our political system is structured differently. I continue to trust that we're never going to a place as dark as what we see in this documentary, Just Kids. But still, we need to be very vigilant.
I hope we have, and I trust Australians have some compassion in them and some common sense. And unlike the other country, we're not a dumb country. We're smart. And we can make our own minds up and we can see what's going on. And we just need to open our eyes and realise that we're being distracted by this rubbish, by this threat that isn't there. And we need to find out what the real threats are and focus on those and solve those problems. Honestly, it drives me mad, the way these politicians work. I think we're a smarter country. I think we're a more compassionate country, and that gives me hope. And I think, you know what, if people like Pauline Hanson do rise up, get into power, if that's that might be what it takes. And then people will realise, oh my goodness, we have made the biggest error ever. Look at what we've done. But I hope.
Yeah, Warren, do you know that in Sydney? Do you know that in Sydney recently we are in the middle of a bit of a kind of a political discussion about a very, very old disused church has been turned into a gay venue for one night. Yeah. Yes. So the landlord for that place has been pressured by some kind of religious types and have I think ended the lease very prematurely. So last Friday there was a rally against this whole situation. So LGBTQIA people were urged to go down to this rally. I went on Saturday, and it was successful. It was joyful. There were a lot of people there. But what I want to say is there was a clear part of our community that was missing. The part of our queer community that is probably not very queer presenting, the ones that were there were very alternative. I guess that's the most kind of simple word to explain it. There were a lot of gender diverse people. There were a lot of lesbians, but there weren't a lot of like conventional gay men there. Obviously there were gay people there, but I did feel that there was a part of the community who I feel like they are starting to be very kind of relaxed about all this stuff because they're allowed to have married, they're allowed to have kids and all that. I feel like that segment, have become a little bit too relaxed, and I understand why. I feel like maybe if you fought for too long, you do need to take some time off. But just want to remind you that they're not going to stop at one.
Exactly.
They're just going to keep going. Yeah. So
exactly.
We need to remember that we have a bond together, and we need to fight together.
And I've got, as a gay man, I've got my gay male friends, and we love our partying. They go out, they have fun, what have you. But there's also a real world out there, and there are people hurting. And just like we hurt during the 80s and 90s with HIV, and everyone came and supported us, we need to come in now and support everyone else. And if you're a gay man and you're rolling your eyes, well, don't, because Suzy's right. They will come. So let's all come together as a community and support each other and have some compassion. And to those who are allies out there, have some, show your friends that compassion isn't hard to do. It's easy. It's not
in America. There's so much effort in America trying to reverse the same-sex marriage over there, and I feel like it's the same everywhere. Everywhere where they have allowed same-sex marriage, that there's always people working to reverse that. So if you think that you're out of the woods, I can tell you that you're not.
Suzy, Janet got in touch saying, and thank you, Janet, for getting in touch. Says, I love your discussions with Suzy. I'm a supportive parent of young trans women, and we are demonised. I try and share my story as a way of showing disbelievers we are just normal people wanting the best for our kids. demonised as parents too by the far right. That's from Janet. And I feel for you, Janet. I mean, these just kids. They're not threatening monsters. So let's get some reality around it. Suzy Wrong, I love our chats. I could chat for hours.